Welcome to In Focus. In Israel, a leaked document is causing fireworks in the nation's politics, with Netanyahu's opponents voicing fierce opposition as underlying tensions burst in the surface. Meanwhile, the United States election is on a knife edge, with Harris and Trump making last-minute moves for the ever-crucial swing states. While Harris struggles with younger and male voters, Trump's economic message is drawing support from those concerned about inflation. We'll examine how these dynamics are shaping the final hours before Election Day. But first, let's examine the latest developments in the Middle East. The Guardian has reported that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu finds himself in yet another crisis, this time over a controversial prisoners deal in Gaza. Following the arrest of several individuals linked to an alleged leak of classified information, an Israeli court cited breaches of national security that reportedly harmed Israeli war aims. The leaked documents, which allegedly reveal the motives and strategies behind Israel's actions, have been sparked a political firestorm. Netanyahu's leadership now faces scrutiny, not just from the opposition, but from a deeply divided Israeli public, with many questioning whether these breaches have compromised Israel's security and strategic objectives. And for more analysis, we are joined from Ramallah by Dr. Ramzi Ouda, Director of the Research Unit at the Palestinian Institute for National Security Research. Welcome, sir, and a very warm welcome on our show today. Sir, how are the ongoing conflicts influencing Israeli society's call for a truce? And what implications might this have for Israel's current political leadership?
كيف تؤثر الصراعات Of course, the Israelis are not going to opt for a truce because, the Doha-Cairo negotiations, in these negotiations, they claimed that Hamas has rejected the framework, but it seems that the Israelis are not at all interested in establishing any kind of truce before the American presidential elections. In fact, they can use the truce subject as some kind of reward to the winning American president. In fact, they think that, later on, if Trump won the elections, it will be evident that Trump has fulfilled his promises that he laid out in his caucuses and in his presidential campaign to stop the war in the Middle East. In fact, it seems that Israel is not at all serious in any agreement in the current time. And in fact, it seems that Israel has a lot of expansive policies, and its policies and aspirations are not really just limited to Palestine. And as well, we can see right now what's happening in the Israeli public opinion, and that the Palestinians now understand how Netanyahu wants to impose certain agendas on the evil parties, as he calls them.
Sir, what role do you see international powers playing in this conflict, especially given the recent U.S. initiative for the ceasefire in Lebanon, which, despite the Biden's advisors visiting Israel, appears to have reached a deadlock?
In fact, in total, Israel just wants to dictate its conditions, and specifically on Hezbollah. You know, the whole Litani subject and the withdrawal of Hezbollah forces from the Litani region and the disarmament of Hezbollah, that's what Israel wants. And as well, it wants to recolonize the Gaza Strip. And it is as well possible that Israel will keep on expanding its expansive policies. There are no indications that Israel is going to withdraw from the Gaza Strip. And in fact, the IDF, when they incurred into Rafah, they said that we are going to stay in unpopulated areas in Gaza Strip because we want to maintain a right of rapid intervention. And they want to do the same thing. They want to mimic these practices in Lebanon. They are not, you know, they want to just practice hot chase and to use force against Lebanese authorities. In fact, the international community now has a great responsibility to incur, but it seems that this responsibility and these efforts carried out by the international community are not at all adequate to change the course of the Israeli government. And as well, we can see how the UNRWA's duties have gotten terminated by the Israeli forces. And
okay, sir,
Lebanese
caretaker. I just want to move to another question. Sir, Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Naguib Mikati has urged states championing human rights to apply maximum pressure on Israel to halt its aggression. What pressures, sir, do you think could force Israel to de-escalate, considering that Mikati also said that Israel has rejected proposed solutions?
In Lebanon, in fact, the situation is quite different from that in Gaza. In fact, the French could, achieve more or impose more pressure because they consider Lebanon a source of strength for them and influence for them in the Middle East. And as well, the Moors, the Christian Moors as well, play a huge part in this region. And so Naguib Mikati could use this card in order to impose more pressure on Israel. But at the same time, he needs to incur his responsibility. In fact, he refrained for a long time from electing a president for Lebanon. In fact, that was a fatal mistake. And right now they can't do that. And as well, the expansion of Lebanon, of the Lebanese army into different regions, this as well provides a problem or presents a problem. In fact, there are a lot of militias in a lot of regions in Lebanon, and this leads to the weakening of the Lebanese state, and the Lebanese state needs to be more present at this point. In fact, Naguib Mikati has a lot of strong cards that he can use as pressure cards on Israel. But the problem is with his internal cards, because he can't make rational decisions inside Lebanon that can make him speak on behalf of the entire Lebanese population and to address all and to consolidate all Lebanese parties internally.
Sir, briefly, in light of the current escalation, what potential diplomatic avenues exist for achieving a long-term resolution to the conflict in both Lebanon and Gaza as soon as possible, sir?
And Palestine, I would say, because we're talking about one front here. In fact, the problem of the Middle East and the predicament of the Middle East started out with the 7th of October incidents. In fact, the calling, I think, for the holding of an international conference under the auspices of the United States and all the international polls could represent the first stage for reaching some kind of resettlement or rapprochement. In fact, without this, I think as well Russia should be invited to that conference, and countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia. I think all these parties need to be convening together, and there has to be a lot of deliberations that are of huge international weight. And without these heavyweight deliberations carried out within a huge international peace conference, without this, nothing will ever happen. And as well, this conference needs to discuss humanitarian affairs in order to ensure the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. Because, you know, as you all know, what's happening there is collective genocide.
Sir,
in fact, the Dead Sea Conference, which was supported by Egypt.
Sir, I have to thank you so much, Dr. Ramzi Aouda, Director of the Research Unit at the Palestinian Institute for National Security Research. I thank you so much, sir, for your informative knowledge and your insights. And we move on, dear viewers, with Election Day hours away. Could the clash between Harris and Trump on economic policies and values, especially in battleground states like Pennsylvania and Michigan, determine the presidency?
What I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it. As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
In the run-up to the election, The Guardian has criticized the fundamental message of the Trump campaign, labeling it as a mirror world where only he can save America. In this mirror world, Trump recasts his controversies, his opponents' failings, positioning himself as the only savior. As The Guardian's notes, racial lingang, Trump's campaign portrays him as supporters and his supporters as the true victims, while painting his opponents as threats to American democracy. With the election days away, the narrative is pushing voters to decide what each candidate's visions means for America's future. Joining us to break down these key issues is Dr. Amgad Ataya, an economic expert, and Justin Thomas Russell, Director of the New York Center for Political Affairs. A very good day and a warm welcome. Dr. Ataya.
Hello.
Hello, sir. The economy remains a central issue, with inflation and unemployment weighing heavily on voters' minds. How do Trump and Harris' economic strategies are different, and what impact might their policies have on the independents and undecided voters in these final hours?
So as you said, economy and inflation have played a very important role in this election. So the Trump campaign are counting on the fact that during the first 3 years of the first terms of President Trump, economy has been in great shape. Inflation has been below 2%. Economy have been doing great. The stock markets have reached new heights. And since then, after COVID hit and all the stimulus, we've started to see inflation rise uncontrollably in the U.S. The debt has increased dramatically. So Trump is counting on voters that felt the pain during the last 3 years that they would vote for him and basically bring back the same Trump policy. The Trump and his team are counting on the tax cuts that were imposed or that were placed during the first term. Those tax cuts about to expire in 2025. So Trump is counting on the fact that if he is in office, he will try to reinstate those tax cuts and will also help the economy. The Harris campaign is basically focusing on the traditional Democratic, policies, which is improving the environment, spending heavily in infrastructure, doing all the social programs to help, medium and low income families. So each team is basically focusing on their core beliefs. We have to keep in mind that half the nations have already casted their ballots. Over 75 million people have already voted in the US. So now we, basically waiting for election day where people who prefer to do in-person voting will have to go tomorrow. But to pretty much, half the nation have voted. So people have already made up their mind. People who, traditionally speaking, people who wait till the last day of the election are primarily Republicans. So, overall, it's a good indication for the Republican Party that a lot of their people have already went out to vote in a pre-election. And now they are actually going to vote again during the election day. So, we expect a record turnout tomorrow. We expect a very, very narrow win for either candidate. Unlikely that we will have a result tomorrow.
Do you predict, already, sir, who is going to be winning?
It's very difficult to predict. To be honest with you, it's 50-50, but we're going to have some indications tomorrow night. So they were talking yesterday about elections getting very close in states that were heavily Democratic before. New Jersey, New Hampshire, Maine. If we start to see a big turnout for Trump tomorrow in these states, you can bet that there would be a good night for Trump overall. If we start to see huge margins in those Democratic states, then we can say that, the Harris turnout is bigger. So we would get some sort of an indication throughout the day tomorrow. But I think both parties are prepared to go with legal actions, even to the Supreme Court, to challenge the election, especially in contested states like Pennsylvania, Iowa, Nevada. These are the states that will truly determine the election. And if the numbers are too close to call, most of the election official on those states.
Okay, I'll be back to you again, sir, but I move to Justin now, and I want to ask him how crucial are swing states, Michigan and Pennsylvania, in deciding tomorrow's outcome, and what unique factors are at play in these regions, sir? And unique factors are very important now to discuss.
So right now, this election, as was pointed out before, is going to come down to 7 states. The ones that we're going to be looking at early are going to be Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and then moving into Michigan and Wisconsin. It depends on, what vote you're trying to look at. We've looked at over the past 4.5 months since Vice President Harris became the candidate, we kind of knew here in the U.S. that the kitchen table factors were going to be very big in this election. Those kitchen table factors, as we call them, are the economy. Can I put a roof over? Can I afford to keep a roof over my family's head? Can I put food on the table? Is my job secure? Is my family safe? Those are the kitchen table issues that the usual American electorate is kind of concerned about at the forefront. What we have seen, however, is that we've seen the border security issue and the immigration issue come up, but that kind of fluctuates a little bit depending on, is it an issue that you want to tag with your base, or is it you trying to get this key electorate, the undecideds, party affiliation, the independents, and try and swing some moderates either one way or the other, either getting
Sir, on the eve of the elections, how do you read the narrative in the United States, of course?
Well, the narrative here is basically the people that have made their decision either through early voting, or that they've already committed in their mind to who they're going to vote for on Tuesday, Election Day. The narrative is going to be what the future holds. President Trump has been saying that the economy is horrible here in the United States, and quite frankly, that doesn't hold a lot of water, where we're seeing record high stock market numbers, we're seeing record low unemployment, inflation is starting to moderate. But, again, it's a matter of, what you truly believe when you cast that ballot. It's going to be a very tight race. I think we could possibly if some of the combinations come forward, where we could see a victory for Harris. If Harris were to win Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Michigan, or North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, and we will know those results fairly early, before 11 p.m. on the East Coast, we could see an easy victory, and that will pretty much make it out of reach for Donald Trump, and a good victory for Harris. So there's a lot of factors that we have to look at here for tomorrow.
Okay, Dr. Ataya, Trump has emphasized his record of economic stability as a major point in his campaign. Does this resonate with voters facing high inflation, and how is this affecting his standing in the battleground states?
As it was said, the economy is number one subject for most Americans. And with record inflation that have hit the country in the last 3 years, people are not happy with what is going on. And a lot of people believe that, the Harris administration will be a continuation of the Biden administration.
Why, sir, do you read it like this? Why do people in the United States read that the Harris administration would be a continuation of the Biden administration?
Well, she was his vice president for 3 years, or 4 years.
Maybe she has a different policy, sir.
Well, she could have implemented those policies, or she could have shown some objection to those policies. But Democrats in general and Republicans in general stick to their agenda. Democrats focus on spending on social program, on the environment, on infrastructure. Ballooning the federal deficit. While Republicans were focusing on cutting taxes, cutting the deficit, the budget deficit, protecting the United States borders. We're living in a country.
Mr. Justin, what do you think?
Wait a minute, I gotta jump in on this.
Jump in,
a couple of things. Number one, it's easy for armchair quarterbacks to say that, Vice President Harris had the ability to interject, and, a Harris presidency is just going to be continuation of the Biden administration. That is categorically incorrect. Number one, as vice president, it is your job to support and promote the agenda of the head of the party, in this case, President Biden, and she did that job well. She's only been the candidate at the top of the ballot for the Democrats for 4.5 months. So I gotta give credit to Vice President Harris for getting her agenda and putting her agenda and her priorities together in such a short amount of time. I think what we also have to look at is the fact that when we
Dr. Ataya, what do you think of what Justin says?
Well, listen, Vice President Harris has not had a single press conference where she actually spoke to the voters face to face without having a teleprompter. Nobody really knows.
No, sir,
what
she had.
Yesterday, she was asked about her vote in California. She even refused to give her opinion about how she voted on very important, police-related voting in California. So she does not really want to tell the voters what.
Sir, I know I'm not being biased here, but it's her own personal issue, and it's an issue that's related to her.
She's going to be the president of the United States. We need to know, as voters, as U.S. citizens, what she's standing for. Right now, everything that she said since day one, since she was promoted to replace President Biden, who everybody said that he was doing great and he was fully able to continue for another term, and suddenly she was replaced and she jumped into the election without being
Mr. Johnson, you were smiling. May I know why you were smiling now?
Listen, we agree to disagree on a lot of things, but here is the fact is tomorrow the American people will decide who is going to be the next president, not just the next president, who's going to have control of the White House, who's going to control the Congress and the Senate. And I think this is equally important.
Dr. Atiyah, I just want to know why Mr. Justin was smiling and giggling now.
I am completely mystified by what I'm hearing right now from my fellow guest. Is the idea that she has not done any media outreach or has not
Dr.
done
Amgad is just an economic expert, by the way. He isn't.
I respect his opinion. I truly respect his opinion. But tell me one time that she had a proper press
Why are
conference.
you against Harris?
I'm for the United States. I don't believe that the next 4 years will be better if she is the president of the United States. We are on the brink of third world war. And there is nothing that
we haven't reached this. We haven't. The situation haven't worsened to a brink of a third world war, sir.
Well, you don't know what the Russia will do if they see another weak administration. None of this would have happened if President Trump was there.
Hold on.
Okay, let's listen to Mr. Johnson, please. Mr. Johnson, what do you want to say? Mr. Johnson, finally. Mr. Johnson, what do you want to say?
I've got to step in. I mean, number one, this is. With all due respect to your fellow guests, what he's saying is completely misinformed and, quite frankly,
that is not misinformed. This is the fact.
Misinformed. You sit there and say that
you can entitle it to your opinion.
No. I did not interrupt you, sir. Sir, I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you, and you are not going to interrupt me. Your opinions are flawed. Your opinions, putting that out in public in media is dangerous. No. The facts still remain. Number one, there is no indication, and this is somebody, and I do this for a living, where I have to analyze and review and understand.
Justin Thomas, Russell, and Dr. Amgad Atiyah. Today is the eve of the elections. Tomorrow, everything is going to be on the tables and everything is going to be very obvious. So till tomorrow, dear viewers, we thank so much our guests, our experts for their informative knowledge and insights. Thank you very much for being with us in today's episode of In Focus on this pivotal moment in United States history. That wraps up our episode today for In Focus, dear viewers. Remember to stay updated by following Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EG for the latest developments. Thank you very much.